Do they wake up and go to the fridge and like there's post-it notes everywhere? Are post-it notes exploding out of their handbags? Do they have notebooks all over the house and they can't keep track of their productivity at all? Is their calendar a mess? Do they even touch their calendar? This is like the specifics that we're talking about. We're not just here trying to say, I'm overwhelmed or I lack clarity or I'm stressed or I'm stuck.
We are represented. We are represented. We are represented.
Welcome to Represented, the podcast. I'm Aniki Shuru, racial equity coach for online business owners who want to be intentionally inclusive by building a business that is racially equitable. I created this podcast to normalize a conversation around racial inclusion so that fear is no longer the barrier that gets in the way of doing this work. This isn't about perfection, it's about progress. Whether you're taking your first steps or you're well-versed in the journey towards racial equity, this space is for you. So welcome home, friend. Let's get started.
From coast to coast, around the globe, we are represented.
Chelsea Wallace is her name. It sounds like a name from Hollywood. She is brilliant at what she does. I've just finished recording. She has made me laugh. She has dropped gems. She's taken me to church and back. She has preached. She has dropped gem after gem, word after word. And she is somebody, particularly if you're an online business owner who has a launch model business, you are going to take away so much. Get a notebook and a pen, or simply use the Notes app on your phone because there's so much that you'll be taking away from this conversation. I couldn't get enough. We'll probably have to have Chelsea back again in the very near future. But let me read her bio for you so that you get to know who she is, and then we'll dive into the conversation that we just had. So, Chelsea Wallace is a launch and evergreen funnel strategist and copywriter who has supported hundreds of online personal brands in executing their highest grossing marketing and launch campaigns. As a fractional launch CMO, she offers fully done for you launch support to 6- and 7-figure coaches and course creators, creating high dollar relaunches while ensuring they only have one task on their to-do list, and that is taking care of themselves and their community. As somebody who has a launch model for my business, I so second that. She helps them function as the talent of their launches instead of the technician, so they can live fuller and richer lives beyond their launches. Her frameworks give them back their time and energy. So whether it's reestablishing their industry leading status, giving them the spaciousness to serve higher level clients, or making sure they have the time and energy to travel or simply to be present with their loved ones, they can do it with ease while having their highest grossing launches along the way. Without further ado, here is Chelsea Wallace. Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Represented Podcast. I know I say this a lot, and maybe I need to find another line, but honestly, I am so excited today because I've got Chelsea Wallace here with me. Chelsea, welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me. I know you said that thank you for saying yes to a stranger on the internet, because y'all, she just randomly found me and reached out to me. But when I saw what you were doing with this podcast, I was like, yeah, all right, we can work. We can do something this one. And once I said yes, and then I started looking at the episodes that you were sharing and the topics, I was like, I am equally excited to be here today. I'm excited for you all to hear our conversation. It's going to be a good one.
Yes, I am. There's so many questions that I have for you, and I just want to begin from perhaps the beginning, which is, how did you arrive here being a launch and evergreen funnel strategist as well as a copywriter? Is it something that you always saw yourself gravitating to, or is it the industry that you saw a gap and you're like, hey, you know what? I have this skill, or did somebody tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, Chelsea, you have a skill here that you're not utilizing. How'd you get here?
None of those is the answer to that question.
Okay.
Because y'all, this was purely out of like trip and fall out of necessity. Like trip and fall until you make it just because
Yeah.
you have to make it because there is no other choice,
Yes.
right? So I studied biology in Michigan.
Yeah.
I'm from Jamaica, live and work in Jamaica, and went abroad. Knew nobody in Michigan, by the way, no family, no nothing, but I got a scholarship.
Wow.
So took my little self up, went all the way to Cold, Michigan to study biology, and then graduated. And I was like, I don't want to study medicine. I do not want to teach. I do not want to work in a lab. And
Wow.
at the time, those were the main buckets of
Mhm.
career paths available with a biology degree. And so at that point, I was like, well, if I'm not going to do those things, what am I going to do? Because this is not like we need to do something.
Yeah.
Came back home, long story short, sitting on my parents' couch, trying to figure out what I'm going to do with my life. And you know, they're not going to make you sit there for long. So you
Nah,
got
nah,
to
nah, nah.
So I ran into the remote workspace, ran into social media management, and that kind of snowballed into copywriting. I found my first couple of coaches, and the second coach that I had, that I really kind of count her as my first coach because she was Black, she's South African, and living in the US at the time. And like I was so blessed, so blessed to have found her and learned so much about copywriting and launching from her. And so at that point, I think I had a skill set of writing before then, because you know, if you're in the sciences, you have to write papers and like read, like you're writing all the time.
Yeah.
And so that kind of translated, and I got really good really quickly and really like helped her turn her launches around. She recommended me to everybody. And that kind of just launched me
Yeah.
from there. Is like I got copywriting clients, gradually moved fully into launching and got launch clients from there. And up until like what, 9 going on 10 years later, here we are.
What? Chelsea, it's been that long?
Yes, it has been that long.
Oh my
Been a
gosh.
while.
I I didn't know. Okay, that kind of changes things a lot. Because with my next question is, as you know, we've spoken before, and I have a launch model business.
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
have a course that I launch a couple of times a year, and it's pretty much my bread and butter. And
Mhm.
we've launched it. We've done 10 launches so far. We're
Oh,
going, I think, into
lovely.
launch 11 in 2025. And
Nice.
a lot of my followers and my peers have launch models as well. What are some of the mistakes that we are potentially making that we don't know?
Mhm. A big kind of mistake, or I think misconception, that trips people up when it comes to launching is that and I bring this one up because it's particularly relevant with the current economic climate and how people are purchasing in the online coaching and course space right now. Reusing your messaging in your launches and just kind of like pulling the same emails and just using them over and over again, pulling the same like webinar, using it over and over again. It works up to a point, and then it stops working. And then you're like, what's going on? What are we doing wrong? Is the offer no longer like a good offer?
Yeah.
Is the strategy no longer working? Let's try a challenge instead.
Yeah.
Let's take out the first module of the course and make it a low ticket offer. Let's turn the course into a membership. I don't know how many of y'all have tried this,
Yeah. Yeah.
but a ton of my students who are coaches and course creators end up thinking those thought processes. It's your messaging, y'all. In this economic climate, buying habits have changed. people are buying differently than they ever have up until now. I mean, you see it, like people will spend thousands to travel. And this is an example I use all the time. They'll travel to watch Taylor Swift and spend thousands on a ticket, and then they will question whether or not to buy your $297 course or your $2,000 coaching program.
Yes.
When it's like a tenth of what they paid in some cases, depending on who you speak to. And so people's buying habits and the way that they make their decisions around what they invest in have changed. And you don't want to make the mistake of thinking that, especially when you've had an offer that's sold multiple times, it's not the offer. It's how you're talking about it. It's how you're positioning it. And we need to do the work to get back in touch with our audiences, understand their buying psychology, and make decisions around your messaging to align with that new buying psychology.
That is gold right there. For you listening, you need to grab a notebook and a pen and just start writing this down, because this is absolute gold, the messaging. And so how do people go about deciphering what the buyer psychology is? I know as part of my process, I do a fair bit of market research. I'm talking to people who I know they're very values aligned. The work that I do, I teach about, racial equity, anti-racism, and all of that stuff within the business. How can you be more inclusive? How can you have more representation in your business? And so, doing market research, trying to find out what are your pain points, what are you struggling with, what is it that if you could be offered, that would make things better for your business. So I do a fair bit of market research. Is that what you would recommend, or are there other things that perhaps we're overlooking? Because Chelsea, not only has the buyer psychology changed, but it also feels like the market is super saturated, and you come from a 10-year experience of being in this space, right? And so you've seen things, go up and down and change. But right now, I feel like we're at a saturated peak. Wherever you look, particularly on the streets of Instagram, it just feels like they're just people selling you something. There's somebody talking to you. They're telling you what you're doing wrong. And here is a hack. Here are the 10 emails. You'll never need to write another one. And that's not true. By the time you're getting to launch 3, you're like, I can't send this nurture sequence again. Like, I need to refresh this. So aside from market research, or is market research the place that you recommend people begin?
Yeah, so I don't like to use the phrase market research because people get so flat-faced about it, if you will. Like if this were an emoji, you would have like the 2 flat eyes and the flat mouth, and it would just be like, fam, nah.
Okay. All right. Scratch
Nobody like
me. Okay.
Or they'll give you like the 2 eyes that are looking at you like that.
Yeah, side eye. Yeah.
And I hear you. It is market research, but I don't like to use that phrase because it also goes a bit deeper than what we traditionally think of as market research. Because not only do you have to understand people's pain points, you have to make note of how they talk about those pain points, right? The specific phrasing that they use, and you have to dig deeper to understand what's going on in their day-to-day life. Like, what are the specific scenarios? Because somebody might say to you, I'm so overwhelmed with my to-do list. What does that actually mean? What does it look like in their day-to-day lives? Do they wake up and go to the fridge and there's Post-it notes everywhere? Are Post-it notes exploding out of their handbags? Do they have notebooks all over the house and they can't keep track of their productivity at all? Is their calendar a mess? Do they even touch their calendar? This is like the specifics that we're talking about. We're not just here trying to say, I'm overwhelmed, or I lack clarity, or I'm stressed, or I'm stuck. By the way, those are buzzwords that we use all the time, especially when we're new to the online coaching space. Please, I beg of you, do not use those words. We're all tired of those words.
Chelsea's taking us to school, y'all. She is taking us to school.
But really, you want to, it goes deeper than just hearing people say what their pain point is. Because then we come online And we're sounding now, just to your point, Annie, we're sounding just like everybody else who's talking about this course or this hack or selling you this thing, because everybody's stuck. Everybody's overwhelmed. Everybody's lacking clarity, right? Everybody's stressed. And we're all using the same words, and our ideal person or perfect fit client is not hearing us because we're not using the words that they're using. We're not calling out their day-to-day life. They need to read your copy and read your messaging, read your posts on social media, read your emails, and be like, oh, yeah, that happened to me yesterday. Oh, shoot, I was like that last week. That should be their response. And it stops the scroll and makes them keep reading and builds trust. That's what you want. So not only are you looking for their pain points and like what you can create to meet those, but you're looking at the specifics behind those pain points. That's the first thing.
Okay.
Do you want me to pause here? Because I feel like you've got.
I think you really hit the nail on the head when you said this whole clarity, overwhelmed, stressed, burnout, that is language that you just come across and you're just scrolling, and you're like, no, 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 no. It just feels so the same. Like, tell me something that I haven't heard. And particularly, I think we've gone through this cycle, and I don't know, you would know of it, where, become a six-figure business or a seven-figure business. And it's like so many people are using that kind of tagline, and it worked when it worked, and then now it just feels like, I mean, no. Tell me something else. Yes, I want to,
Exactly.
but can we just humanize this process a little bit more? I think the online space has become so like a commodity. It's become like, you come in, you get this, and this is how your life is. And it's not. And a lot of people are getting in, getting disappointed and going like, well, no, I'm struggling to get clients. My launch didn't go like how it was meant to go. But there's a process that you need to go through. There is just so many things in the works. And I think there's a lot of just because of how unregulated the industry is, the amount of people who come in and promise you A, B, C, D, and you're like,
Oh,
well,
yeah.
I worked with this person. This didn't work. They promised this.
Right.
But I didn't get this. These are not the results that I got. And so there's a lot of mismessaging. There's a lot of confusion. There's a lot of misleading. There are those who are really not genuine and they're out to make a quick dollar and leave. And so, yeah, I get that bit of understanding the need, but it just feels like, will my ideal client still find me even when I'm talking to them in their language? Because I feel like there's a lot of fatigue when we go through social media. It's how I scroll now, Chelsea, is so different to how I scrolled back in 2017, 2016. Back then, it was like there was a lot of innocence. There was a lot of trust in terms of, oh, wow,
Yes. Yes.
this like, comment, comment, comment. Now it's like, okay, yep.
Moving on. Yep. Yep. Yeah.
So I guess how for people who are trying to get genuine people trying to get the attention of their ideal client, how do they stand up in a market that is so saturated?
Well, I do think that if you get specific, you're already ahead of the pack because most of the people who are making it saturated, the disingenuous people, the people who seem to be the loudest, because quite frankly, they probably have the ad budget to pay Zuck to like show their stuff to everybody, right? We don't necessarily have tens of thousands to be spending every month. Fair. But I do still think that when you get that specific, you immediately stand out. Because I'm like you, Annie, like I scroll right now and I don't pay attention to nearly 80% of
Yeah.
my feed.
Yeah.
I only pay attention to the people who I already know. And then usually what will happen is there'll be one or two people. Like there was this person that I ran across like maybe a couple months ago who was talking about the menstrual cycle,
Mhm.
random topic, but in a very specific and interesting way, and linking that to our daily routines. And I was like, what is this? Tell me more. And
Honestly,
I hadn't seen an account specifically talk about it in that way before. And I immediately latched on and wanted to hear more. And now I follow her all the time. Right now I look for her posts. And so I think that if you're feeling unheard, you're probably not specific enough. And the work of getting specific is the work of connecting to your people and actually drilling down to what's happening in their day-to-day life. And the other side of this that I was going to mention too, which is, again, a deeper level of market research, is also thinking through and trying to identify what are their beliefs. Because there are beliefs associated with each of these actions and routines and habits that they feel stuck in or overwhelmed by or burnt out by. There are beliefs that are associated with that. So, for example, Chelsea 6 months ago could have said to you that I was consistently not putting my own business marketing first because I believed that client delivery was the most important thing.
right.
And you wouldn't know that unless you drill down into what I was doing on a day-to-day basis and then ask me why. You would never have known how to market to me if you didn't connect with me and ask me that question.
Mm.
And so the work that is before us right now is to do the thing that nobody else wants to do. Go actually talk to the people we serve. Because everybody wants to get everyone in automations and nurture sequences and evergreen funnel. Nobody wants to talk to people anymore.
Right.
But it's what's required. It's what's required at this stage of the game, especially if you are feeling unheard. Because if you are feeling like the market's saturated, nobody's seeing you, nobody's hearing you, there's a core group of people that you have. What are they saying?
Mm-hmm.
What are they doing? What's going on in their daily lives? What are their beliefs? And how can you tap into that and then shift that in order to best serve and support them and lead them into your programs?
Mm.
That's the work that's before us right now.
That is the work that is before us. And so in 2024, what are some of the things that you've seen work well with launching?
Yeah. I mean, I think that like talking to your people
Yeah, yeah.
is a huge thing. I think that again, we get so stuck in the regular routines of launching. Like this is what works, and we know that this is what works, and we just do the same thing over and over again. And we get so, I think we work so hard at it, like we grind, like we
Mm-hmm.
we hustle so hard, or poor the rear ends are being like pushed to the limit.
Yeah.
But trying to make these launches work in the ways that we typically know how they work. And
Mm-hmm.
in some cases, they do work that way. And for others of us, we don't see the results that we expect. And so the first thing to me is like, okay, let's go back and talk to our folks because it will not hurt us to
Yeah.
connect and speak to them.
Yeah.
It will only help if something is already working. It will optimize and skyrocket what's already working. And if something's not working, it will help to close that gap, really like fill in whatever needs to be filled in, and then you can double down and optimize from there. So that's the first thing that I've seen really work. And it's worked with my clients. Like we do this all the time. Y'all, quick tip, I always go back to surveys. If you have an intake survey, if you have an onboarding survey, if you have surveys for people going through the different modules of your program, like at the end of every module, you give a quick check-in survey, go back to those things. See what they're saying about how they were thinking before, and how they're thinking at the end of this module, or how they're thinking at the end of this course. See what they're saying when they onboard versus when they offboard. Their words are literally a roadmap to their beliefs. This is what I'm talking about. Okay? Use your surveys. I always do that, and it always supports or launches extremely well whenever we do it with my clients. That's the first thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second thing is really finding ways to create an experience that our audience wants to repeat. And we want to repeat.
Mm-hmm.
So oftentimes, like I said, we are working so hard in our launches that, and we're just following this rhetoric and we're doing all the things. Like we're writing the copy, we're doing the tech, we're doing all the things. And we don't actually get creative. We have no fun. People
Mm.
don't really like want to come back to our launches.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like they don't want to like there's no spontaneity, there's no joy. It's just like really formulaic and dead.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, we can't really afford that anymore, y'all, because one, it's draining on us. We hate, like, so many people I speak to hate launching. And this is part of the reason why. It's because, like, we're just like this.
Yeah.
You don't see sunlight for weeks. Your poor little pet,
Yeah.
your poor kid, your poor partner doesn't see you for weeks because you're launching,
That's
right?
right. That's right.
And so I think there's a way to infuse lightness and joy. And it starts to happen when we realize we don't have to be the ones to do it all. And there are systems and processes and people that we can lean into to support us in getting what we need to get done. Then we have the extra creative energy to infuse that lightness and joy that creates an experience our community wants to come back for. Oh, she's launching this program again. I'm here for it because I know she's going to do something fun. I know she's going to do a giveaway, or she's going to do these polls or these lives or something that's really light and engaging for your people and for you.
Wow, you're getting me excited. You're not saying anything I don't know, but it's
Mhm.
how you're saying it. You know how you hear different things from different people and certain things
Yes.
excite you and you're like, oh my gosh, that just got me really excited about that. And then you hear it from somebody else and like, yeah, I've heard that and I'm doing that. And it's just a hum. It's just a bzzz.
Mhm.
It's just,
Mhm. Mhm.
yeah, but you make it sound fun, you know. I'm different in that I love to launch. I love to launch because
There
it's
you go. Yeah.
a great opportunity to share your area of expertise, you know.
Yes.
I always try not to look at it like, oh, I'm bothering people or I'm trying to sell to
Yeah.
them to make money. I'm serving. I am sharing with you how this can help you in
Absolutely.
your life, in your business. I'm here to help. I'm here to show how this can be, such an added benefit to you in your life. And so I look at it that way. And I love the fact that I can look back at my launches and say, I really went all in. Like I shared my little heart out, and they know whoever was watching knows what I do. And I've shared it. For me, I love the ability to do that. I can't do it constantly, but I do like
Yeah.
love those bursts where that's happening. And I love it when I have something that's happening around it in that. One of the launches that did really well was last year. I was traveling for my brother's wedding. So we went back to Kenya and it was in the middle of the launch. And I just made use of the time. Like we're flying, we're at the airport, we are on transit. Hey, everybody, just checking in. This is dropping today. DM me, da, da, da. Got to our Airbnb, hooked up and said, oh my gosh, it's this time in Kenya, blah, 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 blah. And then just
Yeah.
taking them along with me, taking them grocery shopping. This is how it looks like. And they're like, oh my God, I can't believe you guys have such,
Yeah.
supermarkets.
Yeah.
And it's like better than some of our supermarkets here in Australia. Like it's so much fun going to the
Yeah. Yeah.
suburbs. The kids are screaming, playing, riding their
But
bikes,
see,
on
I,
the,
I love that, Annie, because that's the lightness and joy that you're infusing here, right? Like when you say you love to have that extra thing that you're doing outside of the launch, I think so many of us don't live life outside of our launch. Like that's what I'm talking about. We launch and it's like there's no life. We have no life when we're launching.
yeah,
Fam, that's the time to have a life. People
abs-
want to see you living.
absolutely, absolutely.
And
So
they will show up for it because you, like you said, you take them along the ride.
yeah, yeah. And it just makes it so much more fun. So those I love looking at it from that perspective, and it does make it exciting. And even though those who don't buy, you're nurturing them. They're getting to know you, they're getting to trust you, they're getting to come home
A
with
hundred
you.
percent.
They're really
Yes.
getting to see a side of you they've never seen. And so
Yeah.
yeah, I do love the idea of launching and making it as fun as one can possibly, do. I want to switch gears now ever so slightly, Chelsea, and just talk about evergreen funnels. So for those who may not know, I know majority will know what evergreen funnels are, but could you just tell us what an evergreen funnel is and what is making a great evergreen funnel successful? Is it still working?
Yes, 100 people are still making millions
Okay.
every month from evergreen funnels, y'all. 100% still working. It's just like when people ask if webinars are still, yes. Everything still works. It's just a matter of the messaging.
Battlefield.
So, yes, evergreen funnels are still working. And for those of us who don't quite know what they are, this is an automated sequence of events, whether that is email, podcast, some kind of recorded webinar, masterclass, etc. How you decide to fit that together to create conversion, it's in some kind of a sequence.
Yeah.
And basically, it helps people move through the steps of making a decision to buy or not buy your offer. And so it's all automated. So you're not manually doing this. Like with a launch, you have to like go in and schedule the email every single time. You're not doing this with an evergreen funnel. It's all set up and done for you. And then you're hands off. All you're doing is tracking the data, seeing how everything is working, and optimizing where necessary.
Wow. And so, in terms of what's working right now, are there certain things about evergreen funnels that are working better? And I know this is a bit of a tough one because sometimes it comes down to what you're selling, how you're selling it, your messaging,
Yeah.
because a lot of people will listen to Amy Porterfield and go like, oh, webinars are the way. They go and do a webinar and it's just crickets. Nobody turned up. And again,
Yes,
messaging, rapport, personality,
exactly.
what you're
Yes.
selling, how you're selling it, and the urgency, so to speak. So it's not that it's failed, but it's perhaps how it was presented, how you package
Yes.
something. Does that look
Yes.
attractive and you want it? Or what made you pick this item and not this one? What was it that made you say yes?
Yeah. So yes, absolutely to your point. There are so many factors that go into building a really well converting evergreen funnel.
Right.
And I will often tell people launch and then turn your assets evergreen. So even when the clients come to me and want an evergreen funnel, I will say to them, hey, can we just launch it first?
Yeah.
Because for me, I'm like, it makes no sense. We spend the 20, the 10, the 20K that we're gonna do to like create all these assets
Yeah.
and then put it on, like turn the thing on, and people are going through it and nobody's buying because we haven't tested this structure and this messaging and this offer inside this funnel. Like the launch is your validation. And so for me, that's the first thing is like what's working when you launch it and then turn those assets evergreen. That really works well. That's what I've seen with my clients. Another thing that really works well is really allowing yourself to provide shifts in belief throughout your evergreen funnel. So when remember earlier when we were talking about like understanding their beliefs,
Yeah.
this kind of thing is what it's for. Because what you want to be doing is helping people go from thinking about their problem in one way to thinking about it in a different way, and in a way that will actually lead them into recognizing that you can help them. So you give them a light bulb moment, you give them an aha moment, and you do that several times throughout the evergreen launch event, whether that's a masterclass challenge, whatever it is, you do it in the emails, and you build that trust to the point where people are ready to say yes to. If you do a really good job, you can get a really well converting evergreen funnel going in that way.
Gosh, yeah, I want you to keep saying more, but you know what? What's come, so many things are just going as I think of my funnels, as I think of my model. But
Yeah.
copywriter, what has the impact of AI been when you think about, tools like ChatGPT, and there's the pros, there's the cons, but what's the impact been for you as somebody who's in the trenches? Words is a big thing that you use. What's that impact been like for you?
So I know for some copywriters, it's not been as great. For me, it's been fine. I mean, I use it in my workflow as a big part of not just like brainstorming hooks and ideas. I never, rarely do I ever use a finalized version of something that AI gives me.
Mm.
But it will always get me somewhere between 50 to 90% there. And I'll just tweak, like fiddle with it, change the hook. Usually, y'all, I find, I don't know if it's just me, AI is not good with hooks and positioning. It does like
It sounds
real,
same. Like when you say, give me, here's an email I've written, give me a title, and it'll give you 10, and you're just
and
like,
they all
they're all so AI-like, barriers
very much
to,
so.
challenges to, like it's just
Yes.
like now
And
I can spot AI copy, like when
mhm,
somebody has
mhm.
written,
Oh, yeah.
like, that's AI, that's how it
Yep.
talks. And
Mhm.
yeah, so I look at that as a pro for somebody who is a copywriter. You're like, I don't talk like this. This is not like,
Right.
I know how I can use this to my strengths and to get the,
Right. Right. Yes.
but Chat GPT, and I know it's getting smarter and smarter and smarter, but they're just things that it cannot replace the human eye.
True. True. And I think we all have to get better at, and this is where people might have varying opinions, but when you train it, when you give it examples, the more examples you give it is the better a response it will tell you. So I have been able, like I said, to get it sometimes up to 90% just from the examples that I've kind of trained it on inside of a prompt or inside of a custom GPT, and then it will give me back what I'm looking for. But it's not 100% consistent all the time. So you always have to like be very on top of it. And as a copywriter, I can tend to sometimes it gives me gems. I won't lie. Sometimes it phrases something a certain way, and I'm like,
Damn.
okay, we see you.
I see you.
And then sometimes I'm like, fam, you have failed me. I
Yeah.
am disappointed.
Yeah.
Moving on.
I'm disappointed with you, ChatGPT. I'm going to take a break now. And when I return,
Exactly. But I think the as a copywriter, it is really helpful because I have the skill set to identify when it is a gem versus when it's not. If you don't have the skill of like being entrenched in copy, y'all, I've looked at top tens of thousands of sales pages, webinars, landing pages by this point in my career. So I can look at something and immediately intuitively know is it good or not. I don't even have a checklist I go through anymore. I just read it. And it's like, yeah, no, this sucks. But if you don't have that skill set, it can be kind of tricky for you to navigate what AI gives you back. So I mean, if I were giving any kind of advice, not that you asked for that, but like if I were giving any kind of advice, I would say really use the copy that you already have that you know works and train AI on that. But also, if you can like work with a copywriter, even if it's just like a coaching situation, like or a feedback situation, like, hey, this is what I have. Does this make sense? Or where can I improve this? Where are the gaps that you see? So you can train your own intuitive sense of what good copy is like, so
yeah.
that gradually you can kind of start to identify that when AI is giving you a gem or a flop.
Ooh, I love that answer so much. Okay, we're edging closer to the end of the year now, Chelsea. If you had a crystal ball and you were looking into 2025, what would your predictions be like for the launch space?
Yeah. So something that I saw show up in a really big way for a lot of my students this year was a roller coaster of launch results. A lot of people would get really good like results from their launches, and then the next one would flop like 6 months later. And it's the same program, and they just use the same messaging, and it's like, what's going on?
Mhm.
Or they launched like in September of 2023, and in like January 2024, kaput, nothing.
Yeah.
And I think that what this is what has been happening since 2020. It's permeating the online coaching space. And I think it's going to happen more and more, where people are going to see tried and true strategies, techniques, messaging leading to launches with unpredictable results. And they're having trouble figuring out what's going on. And to the point, however many minutes earlier we made on this podcast, it is your messaging. And so I also see that this being the year where people do the work to reconnect with their, like, the real service providers, the people who are in this for real, for real. We're in this for service. We're in this to show up and support our communities. We're going to be the ones innovating. We're going to be the ones going back to our audiences, reconnecting with them. Things are going to get a lot less automated than they've ever been before. And even when you have automated systems that people might use, there's still a human element in that. There's still touch points where we can, like, connect with our audience, gather information, show up for them, them show up for us. So that's what I see kind of on the horizon, just based on what I've known happening, has been happening in this year. It's just more of that manual connection, more of those touch points, and a little bit more unpredictability than maybe you may realize. So if you haven't been feeling it, fam, good for you. And also go do the work, because it might be coming your way.
Go do the work. That is such good advice. That is solid advice. I do feel like we have relied on automations, like get your systems working. Systems are great, so that we are not constantly, tied to our
Yes.
laptops. But to a degree, at what point does
Right.
it become so automated that people just feel like just a number, just a
Yeah.
subscribe, just, like how do we make them feel that this is really have that personal touch? And I'm seeing a lot of in-person events. I was talking to Monica, she
Yes.
I know is a friend, and
Lots
just
of
talking
retreats,
about, just
like
in
really intimate spaces. Yeah. Mhm.
retreats where people come together and just have that contact that perhaps we've kind of taken for granted, or we haven't had that chance to do that. Yeah, that's kind of coming back in a different way. Um, this one is a different kind of question, Chelsea. And I ask it because you are a Black woman in business, Jamaica. And I didn't even know that. Before I press record, we were talking about that, and we're talking about so many things about our identity. But I want to know, are there any marked differences that you see when it comes to Black-owned businesses who are thriving in this economy in comparison to perhaps those who are not? Is there something that we are doing differently? Are you seeing any indicators around there that you're like, wow, Black businesses, they're showing up in this way?
I think that we are, as Black people, naturally carriers of more in our lives. So, and when I say more, I mean that looks like our immediate families, our kids, or partners, or like friends. If they have drama going on in their lives, we're holding space for them. People that we mentor, whole communities in some cases, like whole churches. Like we carry a lot. And usually, if we are in business in some way, we're carrying even more, because it was on us to figure out how we put food on the table and how we financially secure our families. And so I say that to say that the Black businesses that I see really thriving are the ones that have figured out ways to carry what they're carrying and still be the most consistent that they can be in their business. And speaking from experience, that is, I mean, everybody's tired of this word consistent. I get it. But like, it's not easy, because we have so many stories as well that we carry within ourselves, stories around like what is excellence and what hard work creates. And even like stories about being a business owner versus going into a corporate career and like the implications of that. There's so many nuances that are like scripts playing in the back of our minds as we show up in our business that can cut our legs from under us. But if we can do the work on ourselves internally to rewrite the scripts and the stories that no longer serve us, and find ways to carry the things and people and spaces in our lives that we naturally hold because of how we move through the world, as well as carrying how we show up in our business. That to me is the sweet spot for us. And it is, listen, I'm navigating this now. I'm still trying to figure it out. I don't have it all together, not even a little bit. Okay.
No.
But when I look at like my coaches and the people who I work with who have been like, yo, no, we are millionaires right now. They have figured out how to play the long game, and they've figured out how to carry everything they're carrying and still show up and serve people. And it takes a lot of rewriting. It takes a lot of internal work. It takes a lot of asking for what we need. And we know that we don't naturally ask for what we need because everybody usually needs something from us.
That's it. That's it.
But there are nuances and truths that we have to lean into and rewrite for ourselves in order to be able to thrive in our businesses. That's internally, I think that in a big way is what's required of us. It's not our fault, but it is our responsibility.
That right there is a masterclass waiting to happen with Chelsea Wallace. Like, I just feel like we could just stay there. We can just stay right there and unpack that. We're coming almost to an end, and I'd love to know, are there any particular challenges that you faced as a Black-owned business that you wish others knew, or how are you navigating it? You
Yeah.
have a successful business, you have a great coach who is a Black woman. I guess also, how is it like having a Black coach, because it's different than having a white coach. And I think it's important for those who are listening to hear that. Because I have lots of white women who listen to this podcast who are coaches and they want to learn how to better hold space for Black folks, which absolutely brilliant, great. That's what I'm here to do, show them how to be more inclusive. And I think I've asked two questions. But going back to the original question, which is, are there any particular challenges that you faced as a Black-owned business you wish others knew, and how you've navigated that?
I think that the challenges are very much internal. Like what I was just saying, I think it's really, for me, it has come down to, in a very big way, finding ways to rewrite how I move through a space when no one else looks like me. So I join a coaching program, or I join a course, and there's no other Black people inside this thing. or I mean, and this is another side to it, and I'll just like speak frankly, I am the darkest person in the room. So if there are melanated, beautiful people there, they are white passing. And they're very easily, like, they take up a lot more space naturally. And they have reflected back. I mean, obviously they carry their own ish too, but it is coming from a society in Jamaica,
Yes.
where if you are Black, everybody's Black. It is not a thing. Like, it's not a thing like it is in the US. And I don't know how this is in Kenya, Annie, so maybe you could speak to this. But when you are the majority kind of like ethnicity, Black is not a thing. But colorism is 100%
Colorism
a thing.
is a thing. Yep. Yep.
And so the scripts in my mind that I have lived through for the last 3 decades about who gets seen, who gets heard, whether you're darker or lighter, right? Whose space is created for and who gets to take up space. I've had to do a lot of rewriting in my own brain and heart around a lot of those things. And it on a broader level, it just goes to show you that when you have people of color inside your programs and you don't see them talking up on coaching calls, fam, they are working real hard in the background to try to rewrite their ish to even say a word on Zoom to you.
Oh.
If they don't have anybody else in that room who looks like them. And so I feel like I wish people understood, not that you allow this to be an excuse for not doing what you have to do, right? Not that you allow it to be an excuse for not doing the work and growing where you need to grow. But we got like our growing is a lot of growing. We have a lot to rewrite. We carry a lot. And I do wish that people created a bit more space for that to be seen and acknowledged while holding us accountable to what's possible.
Oh my gosh. Wow, you just took us to church, brought us back home, tucked us in bed. Like
Now we go to sleep.
now we go to sleep and we kind of meditate on what you said. Oh my gosh. I have to ask this question. It's not in my notes, but I just want you to just, how is it to be held space for, to be coached, to be supported by a Black coach?
Man, it's so freeing, y'all. It is so freeing. I never feel judged. I feel like space is always made for me, and that's the default. Like I never have to wonder if space will be made for this reflection or this struggle that I'm having. The default is space will be made. And so I come freely with what I have instead of judging where I struggle or where I have questions or where I'm unsure. It creates so much safety for me to experiment, for me to make decisions, for me to try things, for me to be honest and vulnerable and be a mess and not know what the heck I'm doing today. Like for me to be like, fam, I quit my business yesterday. I'm back today. But like yesterday was like, listen, I fired myself, okay? Like I know and I can explain why. Like I can come with like all the stuff and I can be seen and be like, yeah, no, you are allowed 100% seen, heard, because they have a grandma who they were also dealing with ish for, or they have a sister or a brother or a parent that they were also handling other things for or holding space. Like they know. And so there's just this level of like freedom and safety that I think it rewrites your ability to take up space in the spaces where you are not reflected back to you, where you are the only one in the room, because you exercise the muscle of taking up space in the safe place of being coached by a Black coach. And so when you exercise that muscle in that space, that safe space, when you walk into a room where you are the only one, you've already been doing this, boo-boo. You know, so now you're free to like show up and show, hey, they can judge you all they want. You've already like been accepted, been seen. You've already learned to give that gift to yourself, to receive it from people who look like you. Like whether or not people have opinions, that voice in your head that might be questioning if they do is turned down. And so you get to lean into the safety that you create in those spaces when it feels like you don't have it in others.
Woo! If you are a Black coach listening to this, let that be your reminder of how much you're needed in this space. Because a lot of times I coach a lot of women of color, Black women, and the issue is the confidence issue, the how do I occupy a space, the lack of representation, but just that reminder of what they have to offer in terms of freedom, safety, and so many other things. Thank you for reminding us that. And please, please take that with you. If you're listening and you're a woman of color, a Black woman who's a coach, and you needed to hear that. Last question. If fear wasn't a factor, like fear just didn't show up, how do you think you'd be showing up for your work?
Hmm. I am not sure because I feel like I am in a season of there's a lot that I am changing in my business. I'm talking about like this whole rewriting situation. You hear me use the word rewriting a lot in
Yeah.
this podcast episode. It's because I'm rewriting a lot in the background. Like we're doing a lot of work in here,
Mhm.
over here. And so I say that to say that the fear that I am feeling right now around all of the things that are uncertain, I am feeling the fear and doing it anyway. Like every single day, I get up and share what I have to share, say what I have to say. And it's very different from what I see being said or what I am currently doing. I mean, I'm going to start to share some stories. Like I've mapped out my messaging plan through February of next year. And I'm going to be sharing some stories that I've never shared my life in this way. I've never shared my internal world in this way. And so it's gonna be different. But I say that to say that I'm not sure because I think I'm already doing it. Like I think I'm already like starting to execute. It's already happening. So I guess the same. This is what I would be doing.
Hey, you're dipping your toe. You're taking those steps. You're doing the work,
Yeah,
rewriting.
doing the work, doing the
That's
work.
that's going to be very, very interesting to watch as I guess step into a different version of you because we can't be the same version of ourselves. Seasons change, we grow
Absolutely.
or things change. And so it'll be so interesting to watch that and see how things, just change. And this has been such a beautiful conversation, Chelsea. There's so many ways, so many directions we could have taken
We
this.
could have taken, listen, we could do a whole like next another 5 series on just the like there's so much in here.
There is so much gold. You are a wealth of information. If you've got a launch business and 2025 is something that you are still unsure of, or you're thinking, I need support, please check out Chelsea. I will have the link to all her details in the show notes. But where can people find you? They've listened to you, they're like, I need help. Where can they reach you?
I am on Instagram. That is my main hub at the Launch Copy Coach. You can find me there. I answer all my DMs. So if you reach out, you'll hear directly from me. You can also download my case studies. As Annie said, she's going to have the link available for you. So you can see, I mean, even if whether or not you decide to work with me, you can see what's possible. Like that's why I offer my case studies so people can see like what a launch can look like and feel like when there is support, when there is sustainability, when there is that lightness and joy that and fun that we talk about here on this podcast, when an evergreen funnel is working, what does it look like? That's fully available to you as well. So you can always reach out. I'm here.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your time. This is an episode I know I'm going to go back and listen to. And I'm going to keep following you and just learning from you. You are an absolute gem. I'm so happy I found you. And everybody go ahead and follow and wishing you all the best. And please come back again.
Thank you. Thank you, Annie. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. It's been a pleasure. I'll see you soon.
We are represented. We are represented. We are represented.
Thank you so much for tuning in. Why don't you go ahead and hit that subscribe button and leave a review so this podcast can reach more online business owners, and together we can begin to normalize racial inclusion in the online coaching space. I'd love to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land where this podcast episode was recorded, the Wiradjuri people in central New South Wales, Australia. Music produced in Nairobi, Kenya by Patrick St. Mbaru and Kambua Mathu. Vocals by Joanne Matata.
Represented from coast to coast.